Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. It is 6:30 p.m. This is the time and date for the regular meeting of the Northern Lebanon School District Board of Directors. I call this meeting to order. Flag salute. Director Klein, would you please lead us?
All right, would everybody please join me in a flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. And a brief moment of silence. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hartman, may I please have a roll call?
Director Blau,
Here.
Director England, Director Fowler,
Present.
Director Klein,
Present.
Director Kreiser,
Present.
Director Moyer,
Here.
Director Murray,
Here.
Vice President Williams,
Here.
President Nam,
Present.
8 present, 1 absent.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda this evening is the adoption of tonight's agenda. Everyone has had an opportunity to review the agenda. It was published in accordance with law and with regulation and policy. Is there a motion this evening to adopt tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Blau. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the agenda? Please indicate with aye or yes.
Aye.
I'm trying to shorten it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm
that's
with you
great.
now.
Since we've done this for a couple of years, I think we get that. Okay, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, my vote is also yes. So motion carries unanimously. The agenda is approved. So we'll move this evening to presentations. First of all, I'd like to announce that the high school students of the month for March are Carter Adams and Vincent Battistelli. This award is sponsored jointly by the Fredericksburg and Jonestown Lions Clubs. The middle school student of the month for March is Isaiah Lex. This award is sponsored by the Northern Lebanon County Rotary Club, and Isaiah will be recognized at a future meeting of the Rotary Club. I see that none of those students are here, but we congratulate them anyway. We'll move next to Student Board Representative Carter Pinocchio Kubica.
Good afternoon. All we've got going on is the Spring Fling Dance on March 29th.
That's it.
That's it. I just want to say thank you to all the community for the support for this year's musical. There's a lot of work and a lot of renovation stuff that was going on for us, but we definitely appreciate all the community support.
You all knocked it out of the park. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
incredible.
It's very much
It was amazing.
appreciated.
Well
Thank you,
done.
guys.
Well done. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Carter. All right, any other reports that we have this evening? No? Okay, then we'll move to the superintendent report. We do have Dr. Reist here this evening to walk us through the superintendent's report.
Good evening. To start, I'll ask Leanne to give us a budget update.
Gary and I have been working on the budget. I've pulled it together. We've reviewed it. We will continue to tweak it. I hope to have a little bit more of a presentation and information for you in the month of April. At this point, like we had anticipated, with a 2.75% tax increase, we will be having to use some of the ending fund balance to balance out the budget from what we're pulling together. And just an update, literally right before I walked in here, I did get from the actuary our estimate for next year's healthcare and what we should be putting into the budget. And that was about $500,000 over what we had been using the 10-year forecast. So we'll have to look at that, analyze that, and maybe divide that in half, but put an increase into our budget for healthcare as well as what our actuary is telling us to do.
Okay.
That is all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Leanne, have we heard anything more as far as funding from the state?
They keep going back and forth a lot. We haven't had any leadway or any decisions made that I would feel comfortable putting into the budget yet at this point. I am spending the next 2.5 days up at Hershey with PASBO, which is the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials, and they are very active in the legislative and lobbying up there. So I'm sure that they will have an update at some point for us that'll kind of pull it all together and give us what they're anticipating and what they're thinking at this time. So I should have a little bit better idea after that, but they always give the full disclosure of nothing's been decided yet. So
Thank you.
sorry, Troy.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. And then for my part, I'll do a construction update. Tyler, are you able to pull up phasing drawing number 2, please? Yes. So I thought it would be helpful for a construction update to show a visual of what's coming next. And if you look, this color here, I'm going to call it peach, maybe. Any color experts in the room want to give me the feedback on that? But we're going to call it peach in the middle here. That's the area that's going to be switching over to about 2 weeks from now on the in-service days in March. You'll note, if you actually look at the drawings, that this is slightly earlier than expected, and that was at the district's request because we had the time off and we understood what a stress it put on the teachers to try to change while they're instructing. And, Dr. Ebert has done a great job coordinating those change outs, but we wanted to try to coordinate it with in-service days. And so this is the area that's impacted, but I want to point out 2 additional things. Right here on the corner of the intersection between the 40s and 50s hall, there's an additional classroom that needs to be taken because of the the new classroom wall that needs to be built. So that's not shown on the phasing drawing correctly. And then also to the south there, that room that the cursor was just on also needs to be included because the curtain wall is continuous from the high school art room over into that classroom. So where you look at it and you say, oh, we might have had, I don't know, if there's 16 spaces here, it's really 18 spaces that are impacted while school is still in session. Now, keep that in mind. Can you pull up phasing drawing number 3, please? This is the summer phase. So the unfortunate thing is that this particular drawing is misleading. So you've got to take the area that I just showed you. It's not slated to be turned back over to us till August. And then you take the green area. The green area is summer. And then whoever's on the cursor, Tyler, I think it's you. You can drop down and highlight the teens hall is also part of this summer. From actual classroom counts, this summer is the most impactful to actual instructional space that we've had throughout and will have in the entirety of the project, which has forced us to really be creative and looking at storage options. One of the large areas that was used for storage this past summer was the media center. Look at what's right in the middle of this drawing, the media center. Can't use that. Matter of fact, we've got to take the books out of the media center and store those. We've got to take the furniture out and store it. So some of the large areas that we had previously are just not available for us to be able to coordinate and work through. So with that all in mind, I just want you to know that Dr. Ebert is doing a great job getting the teachers the time they need to pack up to get out of the spaces that need to be emptied and into their temporary spaces. In addition, Carter said it, but the musical did a tremendous job. Behind the scenes, things that you don't know about or may not know about, they only received training on their light board 4 days before their first show. 4 days before the first show. They only got full access to the auditorium about a week before the first show. Yeah, it was about 7 days. So they did a tremendous job with a very short amount of time, and they've probably been one of the more flexible groups to work with all of the pinch points that they've suffered through. So I just want to give a shout out to the musical staff, to the students that made it through and put on a fabulous show. So thank you.
Great. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, great. Great report. Any questions for Dr. Reist?
I just want to make a comment that, hearing that they only received training 4 days before, I think is an even bigger testament to how well the show was. I was very impressed with the new lighting and the new sound and everything. So I think it's been a great investment for the district. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Good report. Next is public comment. Interested persons were asked to complete a written request to address the board prior to the meeting this evening. I understand that there is no public comment tonight. So we will move directly to items for board action. It should be noted that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. By notice of the president, the following actions require a voice vote. All votes in favor shall be stated with an aye or yes, even if I don't prompt you. All votes opposed shall be stated with a nay or no. I'm just trying to mix it up. I feel like a broken record here. All members abstaining shall state, "I abstain" when prompted. The votes will be recorded in the minutes as a unanimous roll call vote unless there are any votes in opposition or abstention. If necessary, the president may subsequently call for a roll call vote to be recorded in the minutes. Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. Any comments, Dr. Reese? No. Okay, so the consent agenda this evening is items 7.1 through 7.8. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve 7.1 through 7.8.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Kreiser. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate with an aye or yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. My vote's also a yes. So that takes us to the discussion agenda tonight, and we'll start with item 8.1, the resolution. Dr. East.
8.1 is our resolution to adopt for the bond issue. I'm going to turn it over to Leanne to do that presentation.
All right, I will actually just introduce via Zoom. We have Rhonda Lord from Saxon and Stump with us.
Good evening. It's nice to be here tonight. I've been working with your financing team, PFM Financial Advisors and Leanne on getting ready to do the bond issue in a few weeks. Tonight is the first step of that. It's the parameters resolution. I think you've done several of these in the last couple of years, so you're pretty familiar with the process. But this resolution sets forth the maximum amount to be borrowed, which is $9 million. And it has a purchase contract in right now for PFM Financial Advisors, and that is because it's going to be an auction later on. I believe the date right now is intended to be March 26th. So I have an auction on March 26th. Leanne gets to approve the final numbers. If everything looks good, then we move to settlement within 30 days. I think we're looking at a April 30th settlement, something like that. But the resolution approves the financing in the amount of $9 million. And it's for the finalizing of the secondary school. It has all of the requirements in for the Department of Community and Economic Development and has the, like I said, the purchase contract of PFM Financial Advisors, which will be updated with an addendum on the day of the bond sale. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't want to go through and bore you with all the details of the resolution, but happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, I guess not. Like you said, we've been down this road a few times, but it's good to have you on board. Thank you for helping out with this. Appreciate it.
Sure, it's a pleasure.
Okay. Anything else, Leanne?
And that covers it all. Thank you.
Okay, all right. With that said, is there a motion to adopt item 8.1?
Motion to approve 8.1.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Plow. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. My vote's also yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 8.2.
8.2 is the Comprehensive Plan and Professional Development Plan. Under PDE code, the comprehensive plan must be publicly available 28 days before adoption. So you'll recall that this was posted last month for review, and now we're there to adopt it. You'll also recall that it hasn't quite been the full time period since we adopted it last. This was one of the plans whose cycle got switched up because of COVID. So we adopted the last one late, but they keep us on the same cycle. So this one is back on time. Just if I were to summarize it in the spirit, if you think back to what Mr. Umberger and Dr. Ebert have presented to the board over the last two presentations, if you think about curriculum and assessment, those are the two focus areas within the comprehensive plan as a general statement. Then to go beyond that, we have the professional development plan, which is called Act 48. And the professional development plan is that teachers need continuing education hours in order to stay certified. And one of the things that districts get to do is specify what they get to do within the district to earn the Act 48 hours. And that's what the professional development plan. That also requires PDE approval before we can actually do it. But one step is for the board to also approve that. So both those plans are presented there for your approval this evening.
Okay, great. Any questions? We did receive a really good presentation last week, but with that, is there any questions?
Is there,
ahead.
an expense? I don't remember hearing the expense of it.
So not specifically to the plan itself. There's a budgetary item, and I'd have to ask Leanne if she recalls. This would go to the textbook budget, which is approximately $120,000 that we have set aside. Now, our curriculum adoption and textbook adoption and material resource adoption works on a 5-year cycle. So it's not that we update every subject area at one time, but instead there's a subject area that's updated over the 5-year period. For example, ELA will be the first major subject that goes under this plan because they write next year as part of the cycle. So it's not necessarily a direct expense that we budget for, but there are budgetary items that go toward the plan development. The same way that there's professional development monies in the budget for people to receive training, even outside of what we offer, or if we have to bring an outside presenter in to present on these topics if we don't have in-house expertise on that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve item 8.2?
Motion to approve 8.2.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Kreiser. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, my vote's also yes. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, 8.3 extracurricular. We have a couple of items on this. No, we'll vote it on. So the way that we'll handle this, we'll take a singular motion and a second as well. The votes, we'll do a roll call vote on this. So if there's any portions of 8.3 that you vote no to, just indicate the specific section you're voting no to, okay?
I don't have anything to add other than to say approve the coaches as presented.
Thank you. And the activity, you have this one as well, job description.
Sorry, yes, and the job description for the student activity special associate athletic manager job description, which is also attached.
Okay, great. Any questions regarding either of those two items?
I had one thing. I noticed that some of these weren't on like within the 24 hours. Like I had checked it last night and this morning and I saw that where it says, well, it says 2026, it should be 2025, I'm assuming. Well, head coaches, but I didn't see like any of the track and field or the softball. They seem to show up later. So I didn't know. And I also hadn't seen the specialist associates. So it was like the main fall head coaches were there, but the student activity specialist associate, that whole thing wasn't there.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Even if one was missed, the agenda item itself is enough to identify the board's going to be voting on those things. It doesn't always have to have a person's name, although that is strongly preferred to your point.
Yeah.
But let's double check that.
Yeah, just the tracking record here does say that it was modified on March 10th, which would have been yesterday. So we would still be within our 24 hours
As long as it's the
for
day before.
sunshine, for sunshine purposes, which would require the 24.
24 hours before this meeting. Yeah,
Correct.
so 6:30 at 3:10.
But I must have missed it.
Do you have any guidance? Move forward.
So my guidance is you can move forward because the agenda item itself, updated coaches effective upon satisfactory completion. We don't recommend this with regularity, but you could have an item that doesn't have all the individuals listed and still give notice to the public.
Okay.
We're going to vote on coaches. And I
Okay.
believe that public has received notice. We're going to vote on coaches if they want to provide commentary.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
It's just a question on the new job description there. It's just kind of a little bit different than we had initially been, had in discussion. So I was just wondering if, or, like how did we,
I would say that, to my understanding, the job description is written with the amount of flexibility that would be required to do the job as it was presented.
okay,
I think would be the fairest
just,
way to
yeah, the
say that.
title was, little different.
And I will say that we've wrestled with the title.
Okay.
Because there was a point made that, that we wanted an all-inclusive title that was more specific, that didn't indicate this or indicate that. And so we've tried to put some thought into that. And maybe this is not the right title for that job description, but it is the job description, which I think is the more important piece.
right, yeah,
So if you have an issue with the job description itself, we probably should address that. But if the issue is with the title, I think we can use some flexibility. If we move forward with this position, in the hiring of the position, we could apply the title at that time.
okay, yeah, that's what my concern
Okay.
was, just trying to clarify the title and, just wondering if that was just to line up with some other, like the position specific and who it reports and that kind of stuff.
The
That's-
concept of specialist keeps it within our classified agreement
Yeah, that's
concepts.
what I'm
and
getting
So
at.
that's why you see that in there. And then I think there was a certain amount of whether or not the person would have the authority that was envisioned when the position was envisioned. So I think that's where you come up with the term manager in the title.
Okay,
Was that your only concern
Yeah.
regarding it? Okay.
yes.
And I just confirm with Board Secretary that the approved student activity specialist item was on here because she finished up at 2:30, finishing up on the revisions to the agenda. So that's
Okay.
definitely been on here. She said the only other person who would have had access to add names might have been Gary, and she's not aware that he made any changes. So maybe there was a faulty issue with the website.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so again, as we will proceed is I will receive a motion to approve item 8.3 in toto. And if there are any no votes on specific items, under the roll call vote, just state which item you're voting no to. Director Fowler, do you have a?
I'm waiting
Did you-
for the
Did you like my in toto?
Yeah. I did.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I'll break out into Africa if you need me to. Okay, so is there a motion to approve item 8.3?
Motion to approve 8.3.
Okay, thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Klein. Discussion.
Are we gonna get coach evaluation again? I'm not familiar with all these coaches and having not been involved with all these teams. There would be nice if we could find out more.
Yeah,
Or
so,
if any of them would be interested in coming to the boardroom and speaking with us, it's like,
so I was just talking with Director Williams about that. That's not within the purview of the board. We do not manage the reviews. I guess the best advice that I have, and I'll defer to Dr. Reese and Solicitor, but if you have a question, the best thing to do is to reach out to Gary in advance and talk about any of those individuals. But reviewing of evaluations is not something that falls within the realm of the authority of the board. It's an administrative and operational issue. But it's a fair question to ask, privately to administration if you need to do so.
because I had heard at one point they did and now they're not. So that was kind of my question is.
Yeah.
Is that an annual thing still or no?
Is what an annual thing?
Not that we have access to it, but do the coaches get
Yes.
an annual review?
Yes, there was a period of time, I don't want to put a year on it, but there was a period of time where coaching evaluations were not as thorough and as complete as what they should have been. It is my understanding, and we can review to make sure, but it's my understanding that all coaches have been reviewed for at least the last 2 years in entirety, perhaps longer. I know it was something that Gary was very interested in making sure was done correctly and completely when he came on board. So I have pretty good faith that that is occurring.
And just from the legal lens, there's usually a board policy that talks about no singular board member's right of access to a personnel file.
Right, okay. But the question it's an open question to say, were they evaluated?
Oh,
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah.
Yeah, and adherence to the process is critical because I lived through that time when we weren't evaluating
yeah.
and changed over and how we consider renewals. That's all really an important role for boards to play.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
So, Dr. Reese, is it safe then to assume that if a coach is on this list, that they have been evaluated and that, I mean, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but if the evaluation was positive or negative? I mean, I'm assuming if they were on the list, then they had a good evaluation.
I think the best way I can answer that is that if they appear on this list, then they're being recommended by administration for approval. Does that mean that everyone on here had a glowing recommendation, or I'm sorry, a glowing evaluation? Or did they have an area for improvement? That is totally within the realm of possibility that someone has an area of improvement. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say that it would be possible, although I'm not saying it exists here, it would be possible that someone could be on an improvement plan for their coaching and still end up on the list as the recommended coach. So
Now,
by
that
virtue
answers my
of
question.
being on the list does not necessarily mean they're a shining star. It means that they're receiving administrative recommendation to be rehired or to be hired initially.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, if there are none, so we have a motion, we do have a second, we have discussion. Mrs. Hartman, may I please have a roll call vote on item 8.3?
Director Kreiser,
Yes.
Director Moyer,
Yes, except for the following: girls soccer, no. Golf, no. Football, no. And then the job proposal, no.
Can you state those coaches again? Bowling, golf,
Yep,
boys
that'd be the
soccer,
girls soccer, golf, and
soccer.
football,
golf, football. Okay.
and the
And
job, I'm sorry,
description.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
Director Williams,
Yes, with the exception to the job description. Job descriptions, no.
Director Blau,
If we're unsure about the coaches, can we abstain?
no, not unless there's a conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a legal abstention, right? A reason you can abstain. I mean, we can't force you to vote
True.
under the First Amendment.
Thank you.
But like you would need to fill out the form and indicate your reason why. So you certainly are permitted to.
Well, I will vote yes because I don't have enough information but I'm voting no on the job.
Director Murray,
I'm voting no on all of the coaches. And I'm voting yes on the job description.
Director Klein,
Yes.
Director England is not here, Director Nam.
Yes.
Okay.
You didn't ask me.
Oh, Director Fowler.
Yeah.
Sorry, where are you? Oh, there you are.
That's all right.
Okay. Okay, yes. We do have majority vote on yes for all, so all items pass. Thank you. We'll move next to item 8.4, District Solicitor.
So I believe the board is aware that Stock and Leader and Saxton and Stump have joined forces, and they're now going to be going under the name of Saxton and Stump. That'd be a fair way to present that.
That's exactly right, legally on the nose. And our engagement will start there on April 1st. So what you have in front of you at administrative recommendation is kind of a combination, right? So we are, of course, maintaining rates through the rest of the school year like we normally would. Instead of pestering you again in May to just vote on another letter, we just put it all together at the recommendation of the administration. So what you'd be approving here is status quo, as well as the rates for 25-26, which are in line with what prior increases have been. With one exception, which is a reduction in the rate of one of our paralegal staff because we're working really hard to create efficiencies in some of those employees on the lower end of the spectrum, just to make sure we're getting it really efficient for you guys. So for me, it's a recommendation I can fully back, and it's in line with all of our other clients.
The other thing I'll mention is that there's quite a depth to their pool when they join forces. And so not that Stock and Leader ever left us out, but I believe they have a depth now that we'll see an increase in service from them as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you bragging for me. I mean, Ms. Lord is a big part of that. So we're really happy to be able to have additional bond counsel supporting us. She's also from that firm, along with sort of all the other big areas in tax assessment, litigation, Title IX, and all the complexities of current school life. For those of you who follow school law sort of firms and history, you will know that many of the people at Saxon Stump were originally at the firm of Kegel, Kellen, Elmy, and Grimm, which are noted school law lawyers who have been doing it for 40 plus years. They are a lot like us at Stock and Leader. Many of their lawyers knew me when I started out as a baby lawyer 20 years ago. So I can safely say they're just very similar to the people you've met at Stock and Leader. And we have a lot of confidence in this joining of forces. It will also give me a Lancaster office, so I'll be a little bit closer to you guys on the regular.
Better than York, right?
Right?
Great.
I won't make any further comments about York.
Okay. Well, congratulations on the change. Yeah. Is there a motion to approve item 8.4?
Motion to approve 8.4.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Blau. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate with aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, my vote is also yes, so motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next item is new business, and I do understand that we may have one item for new business this evening.
Yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about possibly adopting a new policy. I'm thinking sort of like, we have that change order committee where we can spend up to a certain, or I guess it's administration can spend up to a certain amount of money without us having to jump in. And then we have the change order committee to approve it's above a certain amount. I want to do something similar with, if certain areas of our building are to be utilized for more than its intended purpose for extended period of time, for something like greater than a month, that there's a policy that the board gets to vote on it. So it's just kind of like a checks and balances that, first of all, it would have to be a long period of time. And then secondly, it would have to be, the majority of the board to vote, but that it's something that can't, we can't change the auditorium to something for 8 months on time and take it away from the students or the teachers. So that's the kind of thing I'm leaning to. With the report, we heard about the facility, how we accelerated some of the classrooms, I believe is what was said, and then we're having spacing issues. I just feel like the original intent of the board wasn't to, once an area was done, to have to use it for something else, such as storage. Specifically stating like the auxiliary gym. And I wish other options had been looked to. Like we have the whole new gym we're building that there's a lot of space, but it's not just the auxiliary room, because now we're into the auditorium because we've moved stuff there. So I feel like instead of keeping moving stuff, we should have addressed the storage problem. But my biggest concern right now, up and above whether anyone wants to adopt this policy or not, I am concerned about the safety of where they had moved the wrestling mat up on the stage. And regardless of what I feel like we need practices or not, safety is my first issue. And even if it means there's no practices, I am concerned about not having padding on the walls and like a 4-foot drop on the one end. Like, I don't think that's a safe place. And I'm saying that's above and beyond my concern. Even if we have to nix practices totally, I'm concerned about this, the safety. I mean, there's a reason why wrestlers wear headgear and they have padded walls, and we usually do off-season stuff from elementary up to high school. And that just, as a parent, I'm not comfortable with that.
I appreciate you sharing your concerns. I'll start with the first thing that I heard, and that's consideration of the new gym. The new gym was considered. Unfortunately, because of the schedule that's involved in that space, it's not available to us. Construction won't allow us in there. They can't turn it over to us, namely because the floor itself is not in. The space is not conditioned in any way, shape, or form, and that won't come online until I don't have the date in front of me, but it's mid-June when the electrical work will be done to a point that they can even start up the HVAC units in that area. As for the wrestling mats being moved to the stage, that was specifically a recommendation by the coach as an available space that he thought would be usable for the practice for the number of students that were involved in the program at this point. As you mentioned, or someone mentioned earlier, we are post PIAA competition periods with wrestling specifically. And so, as a district, our priority throughout the construction project has been that of PIAA sports within the window of time that the PIAA sports is occurring within their season, including the postseason competitions where some teams, as we've had here in the winter, have gone beyond the typical season. So in looking for a space for wrestling to continue outside of the PIAA sanctioned season time, the elementary was also considered. Part of the conflict with elementary is that the coach preferred to start at 2:30. 2:30 start is not doable at elementary with the current gym schedule. We considered using the stage at the elementary in a similar way. It does not have the same fall-off problem that you've suggested at the high school because we're able to close both doors. If you recall, it's double-sided stage, but both sides of the stage are able to be secluded. Unfortunately, we don't have enough distance for the mats to lay in that space, so that space was discounted. There's been some conversation about, well, if storage is the issue, why didn't you bring in storage containers? When we did the project, the very first project that we did at the district was the athletic field, and then shortly thereafter, we did the concession building. And at the concession building, we didn't have space for storage, so we brought in temporary storage, commonly known as C containers, which are storage devices that you see that go in on chips, and then they're sold or rented cheaply for people to use for storage. That was considered. Here's what we ran into. We stored the concession stand materials in a C container for, Leanne, do you recall what that time period was? I
Long
don't
enough
remember
that things
because
come
I know
down
you were
for
down there
rain.
emptying it and you
Yeah.
were on both sides of it. But moral of the story is that
It's all-
the
sorry, Brett,
items
it's all a
that
blur.
were stored in there, much of it came out unusable in the end. It's not a climate controlled, and I don't want to mislead anybody. I'm not suggesting that all of the things that we need to put in storage require climate control, but I can tell you that our experience with the C container was not a good one. And so we ended up having to dispose of items that we otherwise would not have to have disposed of. One of the major areas, if you think back to what we're talking about moving just this month, and just to be clear, when I say early, we're only talking about 2 weeks early. We're not talking about months early. This was going to happen this school year. It's just the early move of that particular phase fit better in the schedule, being able to do it around the same time that we have the in-service days. All of that to say that the high school art room is one of the major classrooms that's up first for movement. We don't want art supplies in a C container. C containers likely could work, and I'm saying likely, and I'm saying this even with hesitation, to store hard furniture. Furniture like these chairs would probably be okay. But furniture like the high school has, where it's the chromed pieces, that's the type of stuff that ended up coming out of the C container with rust and was unusable after it came out of the container. So with all due respect to the board, I truly understand what at least I think I understand what the goal is. We want to give the best facilities for our students at all times, regardless of what program they're in, what special thing they have. That's fine. I don't disagree. But I can also sit here and assure you that from my seat, I believe we have thoroughly considered all of our storage options that are available to us and are reasonable to us. If the board directs us to store in some type of mobile storage that costs more money, we will certainly do that. We believe that what we have on the table is the most fiscally responsible option that we have available to us, both from the continuance of using the materials that we're putting in storage and also available space to those who need to use space at this point in the school year.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
So 4 months ago, was this known that in 4 months we're gonna need this for storage? Because that, when we were
I mean,
discussing it then, that was never brought up. So it was kind of all of a sudden, like, I don't know, there's a little bit of lack of transparency to not have known that.
I
And then
mean,
all of a sudden, oh, we can't use it anymore. And then right now you have the auditorium, like, I'm sure there's people upset there's mats in the auditorium, you know, they just had their play, but I'm sure there's musicals and I'm just wondering. at what
So
time was that known?
specifically, when the auxiliary gym was being considered to be used for storage, I don't have that date. I can certainly look back at emails and try to get that for you. I just don't know that sitting here right now. But I think there's also, and I say this with respect to our teachers, and I say this with respect to our coaches. There's a mentality that it's my space. And unfortunately, we're in the operation of a school district and it's our space. And we have to make decisions that are in our interest, not in the personal interest. And I think sometimes, and this is not necessarily a fault, it's certainly something that we want our people to, fight for what's theirs, and we want to give them what's theirs. But I'm concerned that sometimes we do take this personal perspective that's maybe not warranted when we think about spaces.
I'm not thinking of it personally. I'm thinking there's 200 students that it could affect that use that, you know, for PE and for extracurricular. But regardless of whether that's, you know, nothing, I still would like some sort of policy, even if it's for a future time, that if we have some kind of policy for our money constraints, there should be some kind of constraint for our space that it can't be used unnecessarily for forever, you know, it's the students, it belongs to the students and the teachers.
So can I ask, within the context of what you're envisioning, if we were to take a classroom and turn it into an office space for a year, say we have an outside agency that needs to come in and render services, we didn't start the year that way, it wasn't designed for that, but we need it. Is that something that you're suggesting would need board approval?
I would say so, but I would say that would be an easy yes from the board.
Well,
Just, has the administration think about the old gym, I call it the old gym, high school gym, as a part of storage too?
Yeah, so the old high school gym is actually part of the phasing for this summer, so it's
Okay.
not available. Trust me when I
thought-
say,
I thought
when
we're-
we
I thought
looked,
we're waiting
when
that
we
till the end.
started looking at spaces available, nothing's available.
Yeah, I thought we were
Y-
waiting that
And,
to the
and we
end.
have to keep using, so one of the spaces that does become available once summer hits is the current cafeteria. We can use
Mhm.
that for some of it, but it doesn't address what we need now. We can't turn the cafeteria into
No,
storage
no,
during the
no.
school year, you know.
No,
so-
I thought we were waiting to that, the high school gym as the last phase. Are we getting to that point already? As far as
So,
construction?
well, it's the last summer phase of
Okay.
construction, right? Yes.
so I don't want to belabor this too much. We have an item of new business that was appropriately raised. I do think that it arguably falls within the reserved authority and powers of the board to do so, which is why I believe it's appropriate new business. But there are two questions that are posed. The first question is whether this board wants to proceed with drafting a policy as described by Director Blau. The second step and the second question then, assuming that vote is yes tonight, then we will have to draft that policy, and then there will be a vote on that policy going forward. So this will not be resolved tonight. The only thing that we can resolve tonight is whether this board would like to pursue a policy structured around what Director Blau has brought. With that said, I don't want to close discussion now, but we'll have discussion on the motion. But if there's any other fundamental questions at this point, please ask them now, and then I will receive a motion, I assume from you, Director Blau, directed towards this identified action. Any other basic questions?
I guess one question I have is, and that was sort of brought up by Dr. Reese, is that if we do come up with such a policy, is it going to be restricted to just construction, or is it going to be a policy that covers any sort of redesignating of a space for any length of time?
I would say, I mean, that would be my general, because we're doing the change order committee is for any length of time. And maybe we could write it to say if it's the only designated space, like we would exclude classrooms or something like that, because we have so many of them. But if it's like the only auditorium that we have, if somebody needs to use that for 6 months, that would be approval. You know, we can have it worded in a way that it's only, you know, it might be just the cafeteria, the ones, the big things that we only have one of. And it would have to be, you know, I'm just looking at the checks and balances. But I really have no foot in the game. You know, as far as my student, and I'm thinking of as we are trying to get to a point where we have great curriculum. I think we're on a positive path for so many different areas. And we have this one great culture of a certain sport that Northern Lebanon is known for outside of this area. I don't want to nix that. Like, I want that to keep growing. That's my concern there. But as far as the most recent thing that happened today, I'm mostly concerned about the safety. If it gets totally nixed, I'm not comfortable, and I don't know how to word that in here with new business, but I know safety, there's policies for safety. And I can also bring that up as new business. I'm worried about the safety of that being on the stage. Like, regardless if it has to be nothing, I'm concerned about the safety. I'm truly mean that as a parent. It's not a safe sport that you don't want elementary kids up on the stage and falling off.
Okay, do you have a motion to present?
So I'm not sure how to do this, but a motion to present to adopt the policy.
I think we would have to say to draft a policy for board vote.
Okay, adopt to draft a policy for board vote.
And do you have the parameters for what that policy would cover?
I wrote something down to adopt a policy that if a space is to be utilized for more than its purpose, I could say if it's the only one of its kind for greater than a month, the board gets to vote on it.
Okay, the motion has been stated. We will review the minutes to formalize what that motion is, but essentially the motion is for us to draft a policy for future board approval that would place the use of certain spaces to board approval if those spaces would be used for another purpose for longer than a month. Essentially, is that capturing it? Okay. Okay, so that is the vote tonight, whether we want to pursue such a policy. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion.
I guess my question is the wording going to be, I would rather the motion be somewhat vague. in that we could pursue a policy or research or something along those lines. Because, I mean, if we do the research and does what it takes, I mean, we may end up deciding that a policy is not needed. Not saying that that would be the end outcome, but I'm just saying that if we make a motion that we have to adopt a policy for X, Y, and Z,
Well,
then we kind of bind ourselves
so
to.
the motion is to draft. So
Okay.
discussion and review of the policy itself would be subject to future evaluation. Does that resolve it?
Yeah, I mean, it resolves it for me, sure.
Okay. All right. Other discussion?
I'm not opposed to a draft. I'm not sure if we would vote on it today for what we just talked about, if I would like support it, because that's what it sounds like we're kind of working towards. I feel like the administration does a pretty good job of managing all the moving parts, and I just, at this time, I really don't know how we would manage it better. But I'm not opposed to being presented some draft language.
Okay. Other discussion? Okay. Well, I'll give my discussion first. So I understand the concern. I think that I think a policy geared around this approach would be overreaching for the board. I don't think that we should be drafting a policy that inserts ourselves in the decision-making process of the administration. Things happen quickly at times that the administration needs to make a decision now about the use of space. This would require 30 days, a committee meeting, and a regular meeting to approve the administration's change of use of a space. So to me, I think that that's a little overreaching. I also am very concerned. I think, drafting is something, but I don't believe that it is reasonable to draft a policy as such that would not be overbroad. Just even in the questions and discussion, what if it's a classroom? What if it's an office? What if it's a science lab? What if it's an art space? I mean, there's so many things that I think that this could overreach, that I'm not sure that there's a way to narrowly tailor a policy in such a manner that would make it reasonable for the administration to implement. I'm just afraid that it wouldn't give clear guidance. I think it would hamstring the administration. My last comment is that this time next year, we are going to be completely done with renovations. And there's not a single department, classroom, element of this district that has not been impacted by the renovations. And it's been frustrating for everybody, to include members of this board at times. I think we need to empower the administration with the ability to get us through these renovations. And I understand the concern, certainly. And the immediate concern that happened today, obviously, we would not be able to address that right now. I do believe that the administration heard the concern about safety, and I trust that steps will be taken for that. But that's my comment. I don't think such a policy would be appropriate. I don't think it would be in line with the authority and powers of the board, at least as we want to exercise them. Okay, did you have comments?
Yeah, just a few things to keep track relative to the sunshine law issues, right? So if said policy does result in some sort of expenditure, because as implemented, it has an application moving forward, we would need to have future votes on that, because right now I'm deeming this motion de minimis, not involving the expenditure of funds, not entering into a contract or agreement. That's the only way we can add something like this to the agenda, and we do need to seek public comment on it, because the public did not have notice of this. Second thing, I would just be very careful with, I agree with a lot of what President Nam said, but because my role is to protect the board, I think one of the things you as a board want to do is stay above direct management issues because of your liability and your responsibility on broad-based application. I worry a little bit on, this is a temporary issue involving a singular sport of concern. It certainly has other applications, but it could be disparately applied. And I agree that it's for a specific issue, and the result of being able to manage it long-term it would likely be overbroad and not implementable, simply because the concern at issue is somewhat emergent right? Planned for, but yet the final decision-making on where can we go, as we know, the structure of change wasn't known probably 4 months ago. So I just think it could be challenging to draft, challenging to implement. And all of those reasons suggest to me that it's probably a direct day-to-day management issue, not a role of the board issue. So holding the administration accountable for balancing all these interests, very much your seat. How exactly they do that, it's yours to evaluate how well they do that. So that's just my 2 cents, and just protecting you from a policy perspective. We need a bunch of steps after this to make sure it's all legal.
Solicitor, the new business was noticed with facilities discussion.
Yes, but not the fact that
not
we're gonna
the-
have a motion to proceed with
Okay,
something.
okay.
So it just talked about discussion, not an actual motion.
Okay,
So we still
okay.
need to seek public comment.
Okay, so we cannot proceed with the vote on this?
You can, but you need to seek public comment.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm deeming it de minimis, unless you're telling me you're gonna
No.
spend funds on this, you're just gonna proceed with drafting. It's a motion the public has not heard. We should see if there's public here. I don't think there is
I
anybody.
believe so.
So I guess
Okay.
there is none,
All right.
and you can proceed to vote after that.
Okay, then we will proceed to a roll call vote on the motion and the second. Mrs. Hartman?
Director Moyer,
Why are you putting pressure on me? Yes?
Director Fowler,
No.
Director Williams,
No.
Director Blau,
Yes.
Director Murray,
No.
Director Klein,
No.
Director England is not here, Director Nam,
No.
Director Kreiser.
No.
Okay, great, thank you. And thank you for bringing that up. I really do appreciate the advance notice of the new business and the discussion. Okay.
Before we
you
move
need
off
to-
that topic, just one thing that you said that stuck out, you mentioned elementary students. As plans were being made, there was no indication or understanding that elementary students would be using the mat in its current location. Do you know something different?
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
saying off-season, they do have practices for elementary, junior. and
Right,
high
and the
school. I don't
summer
know
camps
specifically.
and that sort of thing will happen at the elementary as it's currently planned.
Yeah, I don't know any
Yeah.
any
Oh, okay.
specifics. I'm
Okay.
just saying.
All right.
there's
You
unique
mentioned that
stuff.
and I was like, well, maybe there's more to this that we didn't know. So, all right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll move to reports, CTC. Director Klein?
Last meeting, we had a update on the feasibility study. We have some, of course, we have some more questions to our construction team, Beers and Hoffman. I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to what we can afford. So we're still working with them closely on what that looks like. I really don't have much to update on other than there's still a lot of questions on where we're heading with possible renovations.
Do you know if they have a target for when they want to have a plan?
I think with the turnover of the new director, we're kind of
Yeah.
peeling back a little
Okay.
bit till he gets a better handle on. I think he's been there for approximately a month, so he needs a little bit more time to understand what we really need.
Great. Any questions? Okay, good report. Legislative liaison, Director Kreiser?
There are a couple of things of interest in the legislator education committees. The first one being a proposal to create a process where districts could apply for a waiver to PDE if they felt that they could meet a state mandate more efficiently or economically than the way the state has laid out. So I thought that one was interesting. There was another one that has been proposed to require that schools would put every textbook, course syllabus, and the academic standards that they're tied to on a website that would be viewable by the public.
All the textbooks?
Yes, content from the textbooks,
I guess you
Or-
can do that
and
now.
internet
Maybe.
link. It's the title from the textbook,
Title.
but the
okay.
course syllabus
Oh.
too, as well. So,
Mm.
yeah, that was kind of an interesting proposal. And it did also specify that school districts would not be required to violate any copyright or trademark property rights. I thought
How would
you
they
know,
do that?
kind of an interesting proposal that's out there.
Okay, all right.
And then the final one is that there's also a proposal to revise the way that charter schools are paid for special education students.
Positively, I assume.
Yeah. Yes, there would be a reform that would be beneficial
Good, awesome,
to
great.
public school districts.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, good report, thank you. PSBA liaison, Director Blau.
I just had one thing that I thought was kind of neat, that local colleges are starting to create workshops to help prepare students with disabilities to go on to college. I didn't have too many details, but that was.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, IU 13, Director Murray.
The only update that I have is that we're getting ready to present the budget, so that will be presented to the board in May, I believe. So that's coming down the pike and being worked on at this time.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Change Order Committee.
I believe Director Williams, Director Kreiser, and I have now managed to go 3 months without a change order meeting, so that's like a hat trick.
Okay, very good. I prefer to refer to it as a turkey. Yeah, it's true. Okay, good reports. Thank you, everyone. You have dates to remember there, nothing huge, just a teacher in-service day on 21st through 24th, so a long weekend. Okay, with that, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Blau. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I know, I forgot to write that down, yeah.
I wonder, I've never in my life thought travel.
No, I didn't either.
I just tell my wife, I'm like, no matter what happens.
We'll go, that's what I tried to do. I said, no matter what, I don't care if you're sick.